Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Time Monster, written by Robert Schulman and directed by Paul Bernard. As you can probably see, I don't have the DVD. Because of this virus that's going around, I was unable to get it in time for the marathon, so I did have to kind of watch this online. But I am planning on getting it, so it's not really breaking the law because I do intend to buy it, if that makes sense. But anyway, this is a story. This is a 6-part episode, and it's the finale to season 9, which then leads into season 10, obviously. And this story is considered by loads of fans to be one of the more weaker Doctor Who stories of the Third Doctor era. A lot of people seem to find it a really dull and a really boring experience. I love it! What is wrong with The Time Monster? It is just a blast to watch. But let's just talk about it. See if I can get you, human beings, to at least see my point of view. It's not about... Reviews are not about, trying to agree to people. It's all about trying to just get out your viewpoints and see if other people could be like, oh yeah, I can see why you'd like that, or oh, that's an interesting, I never thought of that. But anyway, so the story starts off with the Doctor having one of the coolest dream scenes in the show's history. We get some volcanoes, which is actually just stock footage used from, I believe, Enemy of the World and Inferno, but I could be wrong. Someone will have to check me up on that. And we get bits of the Master just laughing his ass off at the Doctor. It's a scene that reminds me a lot of The Mind of Evil, in which the Master's greatest fear is the Doctor laughing at him. So here it's like the roles are reverse. And the Doctor wakes up and he doesn't really know if it's like a premise, like he can see the future, or if it was just a dream. But he gets Joe to look at some recent volcanoes and seeing if anything mysterious happened, especially with a crystal, which was something he saw in his dream as well. And he starts off thinking, it's probably nothing then, because they look at one Pacific volcano, and the Doctor's like, it's just a dream. And then Joe says something about going to Atlantis. It's like, it's a shame. There's nothing interesting there. I would have loved to go on to Atlantis. And the Doctor's like, hold on, what did you just say? And then she explains then on this map, this place that, where this volcano was being, it was around where people believed Atlantis. Now, for those of you who've been keeping up to date with the marathon, you may know that the Doctor has already been to Atlantis in the Underwater Menace. And I don't think I explained it in my Daemons vlog, but it is also established that Atlantis was destroyed by the Daemons there as well. Now, the show doesn't actually give you an explanation as to why there were three different Atlantists in the Doctor Who canon. But there's a lot of theories. One includes that they're all the same Atlantis, just through different times of its period. Like when they say Atlantis fell, it fell and then it came back like the Roman Empire. It rises and falls and comes back again and stuff. There's others that explain that there's 3 different Atlantises. So they're all Atlantis, they're all just named. They're all named Atlantis, but they have really nothing to do with each other. Which might be possible because Atlantis and Underwater Menace seem to resemble the Atlantis that we know very little, have no Greek or Roman parts in it. So yeah, that's a big Doctor Who thing that the 3 different Atlantises. My theory is the Underwater Menace and this Atlantis are the same Atlantis. However, this story takes place in Atlantis times before the Underwater Menace. And the one that Damon's were talking about, that one destroyed, is a different Atlantis. And because they explain that what they do is more on like a planetary scale. So my fan theory is that the Atlantis Damon was talking about, Zal was talking about, was a planet called Atlantis. That's my theory. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the Time Monster. So, as the Doctor is trying to sort out this whole volcano master dream, the Brigadier comes in and explains that the Doctor's going to be late for a demonstration of Tomtit. Yes, they actually call it Tomtit, and they use the word so many times, which is just so funny. But the Doctor explains that he'd be too busy with this dream and put the whole world on red alert, which the Brigadier does, because, you know, the Doctor's been right basically every single time. So, despite it only being a dream, the Brigadier listens to him. The Brigadier then goes to see the Tomtit thing. So, when we see the go into the institute where they're making the Tomtit, we get introduced to two scientists, Dr. Ruth and Stuart Hyde, and we discover that the Tomtit is a device which seems to can be able to teleport things by taking things out of time and then putting it back in. And it turns out that they are working for the Master, who's in disguise as a professor at the Newton University where this is being established. And I love the Master in this story. He is just so evil, which I'll get onto later on. But in the first 2 episodes, the Master is trying to get this device Tomtit to try and get in contact with Atlantis so he can be control of Kronos, the Greek god of time, if I remember correctly. Which here you might be disappointed to know that Kronos, in terms of appearance, mainly takes the form of a half man, half bird dove thing that absorbs people and puts them into out of time, or as the Master likes to call it, a living death. Really cool. But instead what he does is he accidentally gets sent a servant of Kronos, and this guy who basically believes that the Master is basically a god that can control Kronos, which he does at one point as he uses this device. But with the Tomtit there were some complications, and Stuart Hyde actually turns into an old man. And it's here we get some bits in the first few episodes that I absolutely love. Doctor Who has always been a show about time, but never actually about time, if that makes any sense. We've had one story that actually dealt with time travel, Day of the Daleks. But here it's more like an abstract concept. So we get scenes which have nothing to do with Tomtit, is Doctor in Bessie, and he uses like a super speed, and what they do is they speed up the footage and it looks really funny. And then you get the Tomtit, which actually does kind of like the opposite, as it makes like a shield around it, and when people get closer to it they start slowing down doing that, and sometimes it looks really good, especially when they actually slow down the footage. But there are some moments in the episode where you can clearly see it's the actors doing slow motion movements. And then that does kind of look pretty silly, especially when it's Nicholas Courtney, because it seemed that he's really given it his all, but it was a bit too silly, and I think this is probably one of his more weaker episodes. But yeah, so we get this whole thing with the Doctor trying to track the Master and finds that he's working on the Tom Tit device. Sorry, that name is still funny. Come on. Tom Tit. They say tit repeatedly. How is that not the funniest thing you've heard? Oh, but anyway. Sorry, Tom Tit. Tom Tit. Oh, f*** me. Oh, Tom Tit. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, I like the elements where it slows and speeds up the time frame. I really like it when stories tell stuff more visually, and this story does do that a lot more than most Doctor Who stories. And we also get a scene with the Doctor going in his TARDIS and the Master going in his TARDIS, which has been redesigned for the first time. And they actually do state that the Doctor has done some redesigns. Now, a lot of people absolutely hate this TARDIS design. It's got the nickname the washing bowl TARDIS, and I will admit, when I first saw it, I thought it looked absolutely ugly and disgusting. Just something about it just seems really odd. But I've grown to love it, and there's just something a bit more alien about it. However, there's no point getting used to it, and no point complaining about it, because this story is the only time this TARDIS appears, because there was a lot of damage behind the scenes, and a lot of people didn't like it, especially behind the scenes of Doctor Who. So when in the next story, The Three Doctors, the TARDIS was redesigned once more to look more like the William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton TARDIS. But there you go. But anyway, we get a really cool scene with the TARDIS, the Doctor's TARDIS material in the Masters. And we get some really great... This is my favourite part of the story, as you get the Doctor trying to convince the Master to stop, because Kronos will not destroy not just Earth, not just the solar system, but the entire universe. That is a massive concept for Doctor Who. This is probably the first time where the universe is at stake, and it's not a Dalek story. So Doctor Who's stakes are getting higher and higher and higher. And we get some really fun scenes with the Master turning the mute button on, which seems like something that The Curse of Fatal Death would parody. We get a great scene with the Doctor working it out to try and put the sound back on. But the Master does this weird thing where the Doctor then says his own words backwards, and Joe Grant is just standing there just like, what the hell? And the Doctor's like, right, that's it, he's not listening, I'll have to go into his TARDIS to make him see reason, which is what the Master wanted. So the Master's really playing the Doctor in this story, which, this is what I meant. This is the Master at one of his most evilest. Maybe not his most evilest, but one of his most evilest moments. And I really like how Robert Delgado plays him here. He's like a kid who has just like beaten his older brother on a video game. He's so cheerful about it, and he's like, I know exactly what the Doctor's doing. He can't be satisfied unless he had the last laugh, the last word in. So yeah, really great moment. And then when the Doctor comes into the Master's TARDIS, the Master sends Kronos out to attack the Doctor, sending him into non-time, the living death. That was a brilliant scene. And you get a a really funny moment where the Master is looking at Joe Grant through the TARDIS scanner, the screen, the TV basically. And I really like this scene. The Master's like, now Joe Grant, what should we do about you? You've become quite a nuisance to me. And then Joe Grant is like, oh, just do what you want, I don't care anymore. Just make it, just get on and get it over with. And the Master's like, your word is my command. And presses the button and the TARDIS seems to separate, leaving Joe Grant stuck in a time vortex forever. And that's one of our cliffhangers. That is probably my favourite cliffhanger. That is probably, at this moment in time, one of the more highest stakes the Doctor and Joe, maybe in the show, has gotten up to this point. So, great cliffhanger. Brilliant. However, we get a strange scene then, the resolution to that cliffhanger, in which the TARDIS, because, you know, as we know now, she's slightly telepathic and is slightly sentient, connects the Doctor from non-time to Joe. And Joe can hear the Doctor, but she can also hear like voices in the background. And the Doctor explains there his subconscious thoughts. Now, the interesting thing to note about this is that one of the voices you hear is a female voice. So what does that tell you? Don't know. So maybe it establishes that the Doctor is a bit more fluid with his identity. Maybe foreshadowing a female Doctor, or maybe even foreshadowing that the Doctor has already been female. If the timeless child Ruth Doctor theory gets undebatedly confirmed at this point. But that's a video for another time. Back to the Time Monster. The Doctor escapes by Joe Grant's help, and they go to Atlantis, which the Master's already basically convinced most of these people that he is a god that can control Kronos, except for the king. But his wife, Galia, I think her name was, she is basically fascinated with the Doctor. She basically falls in love with him instantly. And it's kind of refreshing to see a character fall in love with the Master like this, instead of him using mind control. I don't know why, there's something about this character I do really like. Just mainly because we haven't seen this kind of character before. Somebody who is, from the get-go, willing to work with the Master. And the Master knows this, and he plays it up to a T. I love it. There's a great scene where she invites him to her bedroom. Not like that. To play with her tomtits. And the Master knows that basically that she fancies him, and he plays to it. She says something like she's basically power hungry. She's basically as evil as the Master in a way. And the Master knows it, and so he plays on to her emotions. And it's like, if you help me, we can conquer the universe together as king and queen. And she agrees only if the previous king, who didn't believe the Master, is still alive, basically, by the end of it. Maybe in prison, but stays alive. And when the Doctor comes in, he tries to convince the king to basically chuck the Master out and the rest of the people. And Joe Grant meets with Galia's handmaiden, and the person that she loves is going to be sent to get a crystal that the Master needs to control Kronos completely. And what happens then is that the person that the handmaiden's love interest goes to the labyrinth, where the Minotaur's in this, and so the Joe goes in and the Doctor finds out and goes to save Joe from the Minotaur. Now, here's a really cool fact. The Minotaur is played by David Prowse. For those of you who don't know, David Prowse is a actor mostly known for like when he gets up in like makeup and stuff. Mainly silent roles. He's famous before this in The Time Monster for playing two Frankenstein monsters in the Hammer Horror Frankenstein movies. However, after this, he would go on to play Darth Vader from Star Wars. Yes, he is the person inside the suit. He's not the voice, but he's the guy inside the suit. So when you see him pointing at his generals and Princess Leia and Luke, that's David Prowse. He's the Minotaur from Doctor Who. It's literally like a cameo. He's only in it for one episode. But it's just really cool to know that it's him in there. It's a shame that the Minotaur does kind of look pretty ridiculous, and I think was defeated way too easily. But anyway, the Doctor gets involved and stops the Minotaur and actually finds the crystal the Master's after. And so the Master then summons up Kronos, who then destroys Atlantis and then takes the Doctor and the Master and Joe into Purgatory, where her face is basically the entire screen. And it's weird to see like John Pertwee, Robert Delgado, Katie Manning, and the two TARDISes just like on somebody's face. And for some reason, Kronos is in his female form, in its female form, I should say. I believe it's the same woman who plays Galia, but I could be wrong. And she's basically like, the Master tried to control me, and so he shall live here, and I shall be able to torture him forever. But Doctor, you're a good person, so I'll let you go. And the Master basically goes on his knees and it's like, Doctor, please help me. And the Doctor then is like, Kronos, would you do me a favour, spare this man's life? And the Master bloody pushes the Doctor and Joe and runs into his TARDIS. And the Kronos is just like, I've given him his freedom. What more do you want, you silly sausage? So, yeah, the Master's free to return, to be continued. And so the Doctor then goes back onto Earth, and that's how our story ends. So that's The Time Monster. In my opinion, it is actually a really good Third Doctor story. It's fun, it's entertaining, it might be a bit weak on plot, but it does a lot of visual stuff that I really like. It tells its story visually, and that's why I think it's a strong point. And that's why I really appreciate The Time Monster. I highly recommend it. However, I will have to state that The Time Monster isn't a well-regarded story in the fandom. So take my my recommendation with a bit of salt. So that's The Time Monster. So join me next time where we head off into the 10th anniversary of Doctor Who. We meet one of the greats of the Time Lord Society, and we get the team up that everybody wanted. So join me next time for The Three Doctors. I'll see you then on the Doctor Who Marathon. See you then.